think going down the Thames in the bullet boat was pretty impressive. I don't know if you ever saw that one, but
And what you
How do you deal with loss? Pierce Brosnan didn't look like James Bond when he answered. No tuxedo, no smirk, no cinematic lighting. Just a man who has buried too many people he loved. His answer was simple: faith. At 71, the former 007 is no longer outrunning villains. He's confronting something far quieter and far more permanent. Recently, when he spoke about putting his affairs in order and making sure his family is secure for whatever comes, fans felt something shift. This wasn't retirement talk. This wasn't promotional wisdom. It sounded like preparation. When a man who has already lost a wife and a daughter to the same genetic disease begins organizing legacy, it feels different. It feels intentional. The world sees strength when they look at him. They see the man who survived explosions in GoldenEye. But strength looks different in private. It looks like hospital rooms. It looks like holding hands until they go cold. It looks like making peace with questions that never get answered. Pierce has faced the same nightmare 3 times in his family line. Ovarian cancer, silent, relentless, inherited. And now, at an age where reflection becomes unavoidable, he isn't pretending he's untouchable. The spy who made danger look elegant is preparing for the only mission no one completes successfully. But to understand why this moment feels heavy, you have to understand the boy he used to be. Because loss didn't begin with death, it began with absence. Before the fame, before Hollywood, before Bond, there was a quiet boy in Drogheda who learned early that permanence is an illusion. Pierce was born in 1953 into modest circumstances. His father left when he was too young to remember his face. Imagine growing up without even a memory to hold on to. His mother, May, tried to hold everything together, but survival required sacrifice. In 1957, she left for London to find work, leaving 4-year-old Pierce behind. What was supposed to be temporary turned into 7 long years. 7 years of being passed between relatives, 7 years of new beds, new schools, new rules. Stability became a stranger. He grew quiet, observant, self-contained. Teachers noticed intelligence, but also distance. He wasn't disruptive, he wasn't loud, he simply watched. Children who move too often learn a dangerous skill: emotional independence. Don't get too attached. Don't expect permanence. When he finally reunited with his mother in Scotland at age 11, he felt relief and resentment at the same time. She had remarried. There was a new man in the house. Kind, patient, willing to try. But trust isn't automatic when you've learned to survive alone. Those early fractures didn't make Pierce weak. They made him controlled, measured, guarded. And years later, when audiences praised his composure as James Bond, they didn't realize that discipline had been rehearsed since childhood. He didn't learn calm from acting school, he learned it from abandonment. Everything shifted in 1964. One cinema visit, one film, one character who looked nothing like the insecure boy sitting in the dark. The movie was Goldfinger. On screen was Sean Connery, controlled, confident, unshaken by chaos. Bond didn't hesitate. Bond didn't look abandoned. Bond walked into danger as if he owned it. For young Pierce, that wasn't entertainment, it was revelation. Here was a man who embodied everything he felt he lacked: certainty, power, presence. That night, something silent formed inside him. Not ambition, not ego, but possibility. Years later, he would say he wanted to step into worlds that felt larger than his own. At 16, he moved to London and enrolled in art school. Acting wasn't even the plan. He loved painting. He admired Francis Bacon's darkness and Lucian Freud's realism. He survived on toast and tea while wealthier students coasted on comfort. But fate works in strange ways. One afternoon, he wandered into a theater workshop and saw a fire eater rehearsing. Instead of watching, he volunteered to try. That impulsive moment redirected his life. He joined the Drama Centre London, trained relentlessly, and endured brutal criticism. Many dropped out. He didn't. Rejection had already taught him endurance. But destiny has a twisted sense of timing, because just as his career began rising, life prepared a challenge no acting class could rehearse. In 1982, Pierce auditioned for a small television role. He wasn't chasing stardom, he was chasing stability. That show became Remington Steele. Overnight, he was a leading man in America, smooth, intelligent, magnetic. 15 million viewers tuned in weekly. Critics whispered that he looked like the next James Bond. Even producer Albert Broccoli noticed. For a moment, it felt like destiny aligning. But television contracts are unforgiving. When Bond producers showed interest, NBC extended his contract to keep him locked in place. The opportunity slipped away. Publicly, he smiled. Privately, it stung. Still, fame was building. Money flowed. Recognition expanded. His family felt secure. He had married Cassandra Harris, adopted her 2 children, and built the kind of home he never had. He was becoming the father he wished he'd known. Life seemed balanced, career rising, family stable, future bright. And then, in 1987, everything changed. While filming abroad, Cassandra fell ill. Tests were run. Doctors delivered words that feel unreal when spoken aloud. Ovarian cancer, advanced, aggressive. The glamorous life dissolved instantly. Sets were replaced with hospital corridors, scripts were replaced with medical charts. Pierce described himself as present but powerless. For 4 years they fought. Surgeries, chemotherapy, hope, setback, repeat. Fame couldn't negotiate with disease. And for the first time, the man who would later portray invincibility faced an enemy he couldn't outwit. Cancer doesn't just attack the body, it invades time. It stretches days into uncertainty and compresses hope into fragile moments. Cassandra endured 8 surgeries and relentless chemotherapy. Pierce stood beside her, calling himself the quiet partner. Their young son watched his mother weaken. The older children tried to stay strong. The house felt heavy with unspoken fear. In December 1991, Cassandra whispered, "It's just a life winding down." She was 43. Pierce held her hand as she passed. There is a particular silence that follows a final breath. It doesn't echo, it absorbs everything. Suddenly, he was a widower raising 3 children alone. Grief arrived without instruction. He once said that losing her rewired him. It stripped away illusion and left only truth. When he was officially cast as Bond in 1994, the victory felt incomplete. His debut in GoldenEye resurrected the franchise and grossed hundreds of millions worldwide. Audiences saw confidence. They saw the perfect 007. They didn't see the man channeling personal loss into every controlled expression. Behind the charm was a widower who had learned that love and mortality often arrive together. The world celebrated his triumph. He quietly carried absence. And just when it seemed the worst had passed, history prepared to repeat itself. In 1994, just months before Bond officially became his, Pierce met Keely Shea Smith at a beach gathering. She wasn't dazzled by fame. She listened, she laughed easily, she treated him like a man, not a myth. After years of grief, something steady entered his life. They married in Ireland in 2001, surrounded by close friends and centuries-old stone walls. Keely brought warmth back into the home. Together, they raised 2 sons. Stability returned, not flashy, not loud, but grounded. Yet grief leaves residue. It never fully dissolves. Pierce became more reflective, more grateful. He deepened his advocacy work, supporting organizations like UNICEF and environmental causes, including Greenpeace. He wasn't just acting anymore. He was channeling pain into purpose. But while new love provided healing, genetics lingered quietly in the background. Cassandra's cancer had been inherited. That truth carried implications. For years, the family hoped lightning wouldn't strike twice. Hope can be powerful, but it is not protection. And in 2013, the phone rang again. Charlotte was vibrant, strong, a mother of 2, and in her early 40s, she received the same diagnosis that had taken her mother: ovarian cancer. The words felt eerily familiar. 3 years of treatment followed. Hope rose and fell in cycles. Pierce watched history replay with terrifying precision. He had adopted Charlotte in 1986 after her biological father passed. She carried his name, his heart. Now he stood beside another hospital bed, powerless again. In June 2013, Charlotte married her longtime partner. 2 weeks later, she died, 41 years old. The symmetry was cruel. Pierce later described holding her hand as the disease took her. Again, the silence returned. Again, the questions. 3 generations touched by the same illness. Fame offered no immunity. Wealth offered no escape. The grief was not public spectacle. It was deeply personal repetition. At a cancer awareness fundraiser, Pierce spoke with visible emotion, calling the disease wretched and inherited. The composure audiences admired trembled that night. Losing a spouse reshapes you. Losing a child fractures something deeper. But even in devastation, he chose purpose. He continued advocacy, determined to support early detection and research, because when you can't rewrite your own story, you try to influence someone else's ending. Grief affects everyone differently. After Cassandra's death in 1991, Christopher struggled. Pain that isn't processed finds outlets. Legal troubles followed. Substance abuse entered quietly and stayed loudly. Arrests, rehabilitation attempts, distance. Pierce faced another battle, not with disease, but with addiction. Watching a child unravel is its own helplessness. He supported when he could, set boundaries when necessary, loved without illusion. Parenting through trauma demands strength no script prepares you for. Publicly, he maintained composure. Privately, he worried. Addiction, like cancer, doesn't negotiate. It requires endurance. Pierce once said that fatherhood defines him more than any role. Being Bond brought applause. Being a father brought accountability. Through it all, Keeley remained steady. Their partnership became anchor and refuge. Marriage, tested by public scrutiny and personal sorrow, endured. That endurance speaks louder than box office numbers. And now, at 71, Pierce reflects differently on time, because survival eventually turns into legacy. The world still sees sophistication when Pierce enters a room. They see the tuxedo, the voice, the posture refined by decades on screen. But beneath that image is a man who has outlived profound loss. He continues acting, choosing roles that reflect maturity rather than spectacle. He speaks often about gratitude and faith, not in dramatic declarations, but in grounded acknowledgement. Faith, he says, helped him survive, not erase pain, survive it. He has organized his estate carefully, spoken openly about ensuring his family is protected. Some interpret it as aging realism, others sense deeper awareness. When someone has buried a wife and a daughter to the same illness, preparation becomes instinct. It isn't pessimism, it's responsibility. He has marched for environmental reform, supported humanitarian efforts, and used his platform to elevate awareness rather than ego. The myth of invincibility faded long ago. What remains is resilience. At 71, Pierce Brosnan no longer needs to prove strength. He has lived it, not through stunts or scripted heroics, but through hospital vigils and graveside goodbyes. He once portrayed a man who always escaped danger. Real life taught him that some battles aren't meant to be won, they are meant to be endured. Today, when he speaks about faith, it doesn't sound theatrical, it sounds earned. He continues loving deeply, working steadily, and advocating fiercely. The boy who learned not to depend on anyone became a father determined to protect everyone. The actor who idolized Bond became Bond, and the man who faced repeating tragedy chose purpose instead of bitterness. Legacy for him isn't measured in box office numbers. It's measured in the lives he's tried to shield from the pain he knows too well. The world may remember him as 007, but his greatest role was never fictional. It was standing firm when everything fragile in his life kept breaking. And that is a mission no spy training could prepare him for.